Hi, welcome to the video. My name is Dychronic, and today I wanted to take a look at my top 10 PvE specials in Destiny 2 Season of the Haunted. And of course, as always, I have made a spreadsheet for this video, which obviously has all of the regular stuff, plus obviously the damage calculations, which I obviously added the new stuff, updated all of the fusion rifle changes, and all the other stuff that did apply. And that can still be found at my Discord server, link in the description down below, on the channel, #spreadsheet stocks. Just make sure you verify with the bot when you get there. And hey, look, there's cute animals near the beginning of the video. Just want to say thank you for watching. I'll tell you a little bit more about these cute animals a little bit later. Yeah, it's that's one way to do it. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. On screen right now, this is my spreadsheet. All of its beautiful dark theme, color-coded, pictures, recommendations, how to get stuff, links, catalyst information, about all the weapons I considered, as well as variations. You'll see things like first and last out, or first and last out with Vorpal, or first and last out with Vorpal Assault Mag, or something like this, because obviously on the right side, we have all the damage calculations, which certain weapons of different kind of perk combinations will do different DPS, different total damage, for all the weapons I considered for this video. And obviously, I'm not doing every single one of them. I'm not doing every weapon. I'm not doing every combination because there are a lot of them. I just focused on the ones that made the most sense to me. And as you guys probably have guessed, I don't really do my top 10 like a lot of other people. I'm not going to go through just the top 10. Instead, we're going to go through each of the categories of weapons and talk about why or why they're not part of the meta. First up, let's talk about Glaives. And Glaives are mostly the same as they were before, although the exotics to get a number of changes. Most of them weren't really to their damage. And of course, we got to change to doing 25% more melee damage. You can see the Enigma all the way up here at row 34 with a very respectable amount of DPS and obviously infinite ammo because it's melee. However, obviously dangerous because melee leaves you vulnerable. The main problem is the same as it always has been, is it just feels a little bit slow and doesn't feel like it excels at anything. And personally, I have not really used the exotics much at all, just mostly watched other people use it and got their opinions, so I can't really say too much about them, but it still feels underwhelming, especially considering how many wellsprings you need to do in order to get the quest for it. In the next category, we have the trace rifles. And the trace rifles actually did get a buff this season, which is a weird buff. It says increase the trace rifle buff against non-red bar combatants to a total of 20% over live. I have no idea what over live is, but they seem to do a little bit more damage. They're probably referring to a buff that they gave it and then reduced it and then gave it back. I'm not too sure. It's been a long time. When it comes down to it, the trace rifles, in my opinion, are just kind of higher damage auto rifles, which can sound nice, but then you look at the DPS output of fusion rifles, of shotguns, and everything else, and it just doesn't measure up. However, the new trace rifle, the Hollow Denial, can roll with a perk called Killing Tally, which is very similar to Kill Tally from 21% Delirium. You do more damage with this weapon until you reload or stow it. And you can do up to 30% more damage with this weapon, which actually gives you a pretty decent DPS over a pretty decent range. Keeping in mind that you do have to get a kill with the weapon before actually getting these damages. For the most part, you want to take a look at the exotics. All of them do something very unique, like Aegir's does a lot more damage and does those little stasis freezy things. However, my favorite's obviously Divinity. At number 7 out of 10, it's a very powerful option with overload rounds for champions. It has the weaken effect, it has the easy crit effect. It's very useful in team play, and I gotta say, once again, it is pretty much the only overload exotic special we have in the game. Outside of that Warlock boots, I believe, it's the only exotic overload, which is very annoying. In the next category, we have the snipers. And as a blanket statement for most of the snipers outside of the exotics, they have a lot of range, but very low DPS, and obviously require headshots to do any amount of damage. They have like a 3 to 4 times multiplier, making them very important to get those headshots. So the fact that they're hard to use, you have to use them at extreme range, and they don't do a high amount of DPS means you're probably not going to be using them that often. And right now, the artifact does not support them either. Outside of that, obviously there are 2 snipers that do shine. First of all, we have Izanagi's Burden, which you've probably seen in a lot of Nightfalls and a lot of raids, especially with the newer raid, Vow of Disciple. Specifically, the Izanagi's Honed Edge ×4 with the catalyst does an incredible amount of burst DPS, and of course you can reload behind cover, allowing you to have a very safe burst DPS. Keeping in mind, you only have 4 of those cannon shots. That being said, this is something that's very useful in a lot of different ways. You see a champion that's been stunned, you just bop them once, and they usually die. You want to do a bunch of damage in a small DPS phase, you just bop as much as you can and move on to your next weapon. Izanagi's is always going to be a good option, specific and niche option, but always good. After that, we also have Cloud Strike. Again, very decent DPS, especially if you're landing all crits for the lightning effect, however, just not making the top 10. And when it comes down to the favorite legendary versions, I still like the 72 RPM aggressive frames because they do the most damage, total ammo damage, and that's often what I prefer. In the next category, we have the shotguns, pretty much the highest DPS DPS special weapons in the game. Not only are they the highest DPS, they're obviously one of the closer range and obviously the easier to use, which is probably why most of you are probably going to be using a shotgun in most of your loadouts most of the time. They're just easy, fun, and effective. When it comes down to the best legendary options, I still like these slugs, even though the slugs did get nerfed a couple different times. If you get good with them, you get a good roll with them, they do feel really nice and do have a little bit more range advantage, allowing you to stay out of slam range. Specifically, First and Last Out, Heritage, Fortissimo, a lot of decent options. After that, the lightweight frames are also a good option, in my opinion. The best pellet spread, good combination of fire rate and of course damage, and specifically things like Reese Walker, Wastelander, the CQC-12, a lot of good options. Even the new one, Without Remorse, is a good lightweight that does have a combination with Vorpal. When it comes to the exotic shotguns, there's a bunch of different varieties that we have options for, but most of the time they're just a little bit unwieldy or just not exactly what you'd want as an exotic option. Considering how many times we need champion rounds or specific weapon combinations for damage phase, they just don't fit most of the time. Next up, let's take a look at the fusion rifles. By far the most changed archetype of weapon across the board. Pretty much they had different changes to their RPMs, different changes to their damage types, and a lot of people who really loved the rapid fires before, for some reason completely abandoned them this season when they really feel pretty much the same. And on top of that, we do have like 4 or 5 new fusion rifles this season, including a new kinetic slot stasis Riptide that has Vorpal as an option, although unfortunately a very saturated pool. TLDR, I still think that fusion rifles are amazing, and among the fusion rifles, I think that the rapid fires are way and above better than all of the other ones. Still, for DPS and total ammo damage, they're still just not competible. Obviously, they have a lot less range, but that usually doesn't matter for me. When it comes to the exotic versions, I still really like Bastion as an option. It has actually pretty good DPS and total ammo damage. It has the built-in unstoppable rounds, which is very convenient as a special ammo champion round weapon. And of course, we have the Merciless, which actually slotted into number 10 in front of Duality this season because I've been using it a bit more, and its DPS output is insane, especially with that new Warlock boots. Kind of fun to just air dodge to the air, get that reloaded, fire again. It's a lot of fun. In the next category, let's take a look at the grenade launchers, specifically the special ammo grenade launchers. And as I've said before, they're pretty much the same as they were last season. They're a really good option as a kind of like mid-range fodder enemy, major enemy, has lots of total ammo. It's just really nice to use in a lot of different ways. Whereas I find a lot of the times you either are trying to have very close range with shotguns or fusion rifles, or you're trying to do very long range with snipers, and the grenade launchers feel like something more in the middle, a little bit more controllable, and obviously you can go in and out of cover while reloading them, and that is very useful. And on top of that, we did get a new one this season in the form of Lingering Dread. Has Spike Grenade and Frenzy as an option, although not particularly amazing. When it comes down to the grenade launchers, obviously at number 2 it's gonna be the Wither Horde, and if you've ever used the Wither Horde, you know why this thing is amazing. If you look on screen right now, you can actually see the total ammo damage chart, and Wither Horde is so far and above higher than every single other option, even that of most of the heavy weapons when it comes to total ammo damage. And I've said this many times before, but it is very important you understand that total ammo damage actually matters a lot when it comes to the higher level play. Oftentimes more important than that of DPS output. Keeping in mind that with Wither Horde, you can shoot a shot, you can switch weapons to something else, do damage with that weapon, it auto-loads in your pocket with the catalyst, and you can shoot the weapon again. It's good against fodder, it's good against majors, it's good against groups, it's good against bosses, it's good as combination with other weapons, it's good for pretty much every single thing in the game, except for it doesn't have a champion round. If it had a champion round, it would be beyond broken. Which it did that one season. That was kind of fun. On top of being able to weaken enemies, oh dude, that season was broken with Wither Horde. And in the final special category, we have number 1, which is going to be Arbalest and Ariana's Vow. Now I've placed both of these weapons, although they're very different weapons, as number 1 for a couple different reasons. First of all, they are kind of the counterparts of each other. Ariana's Vow is going to be the energy version, Arbalest is going to be the kinetic version. Most of the time when people use these weapons, it's for champions, specifically barrier champions, which they both have. And they have a number of different reasons on top of that that makes them amazing. First of all, when it comes to Ariana's Vow, it is a very easy weapon to use at both close range and long range. It has a catalyst that auto-loads it, meaning you'll always have barrier ammo whenever you need it, and it's just very convenient. Its DPS and total ammo damage is actually very, very respectful. It has a damage perk where you just have to keep getting headshots in a row. It is just one of those weapons that nails all 5 of my major categories and is very good to use. On the other side, we have the Arbalest, which is in the kinetic slot. Also very good at long range, although it does suffer at close range with that small aim assistance cone. It has the ability to do like 600% more damage to like special shields as a kinetic weapon, making it ideal for match game. It also has the ability to auto reload with Genesis and that extra perk that makes it do more damage, which makes it very nice. When you bop a shield, you do more damage with kinetic. Although unfortunately it did get nerfed overall, as it does 25% less damage to champions, but will still one bop a buried champion shield. And again, both of these weapons are amazing. Both of these weapons are barrier weapons for the kinetic and the energy slot. If you want one or the other, just swap one or the other. There shouldn't be a competition. Although the last thing I should say is that Arbalest does technically have better DPS and full ammo damage if you can land 80% headshots over body shot, which may not be as plausible for you. And you know who else likes the Ariana's Vow and the Arbalest? These cute animals on screen right now. You see what I did there? And of course, these videos would not be possible without the support of my patrons on Patreon. Truly, these videos, these spreadsheets, these top 10s and everything would really not be possible because most likely I'd have to get a part-time job if I didn't make the income from Patreon. And then that would take over the time that I could actually make the spreadsheets. So if you want to see these spreadsheets continue, if you want to see me continue making them, please consider checking out, link in the description down below. Specifically, a big thank you to Mom and Dad, Postalones, Unbox World, Monday, Stu Bachman, Student Panther, and Casey Reagan for the support on Patreon. And that's it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name's Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.